Hello everybody and welcome back to RaceSpot Friday Night Prime Time. We've travelled over the Atlantic back towards the USA once more. Laguna Seca on the menu here tonight for the new Renault Clios into iRacing. The low power but high excitement action of this series ready to come to this circuit. Very twisty it is. It will suit these cars well, or so we hope. My name is Ewan O'Leary. I'm alongside Will Chadwick here this evening. Will, it's good to be back on RaceSpotTV Primetime. It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to watching these Clios as well because they're a fantastic form of racing in real life, and we're translating that over to iRacing as best we possibly can.
Absolutely, Ewan. It's a pleasure to have you here. And as you see right now on screen, we have got our calendar. Last week, we were at the Seca 2000 circuit. Very, very interesting race where we saw a late pass for the win by the RD Sim Sports driver. Here, we're at a free track this week. A lot of people will know this on iRacing. You may have played it across many other sims. We're at Laguna Seca, as Ewan has mentioned. Next week, we go to the Red Bull Ring, which should be interesting too. But yeah, I can't wait for tonight's action, Ewan.
Yeah, Red Bull Ring's going to be wild, by the way, next week. That's going to be quite a scene with the amount of slipstream you'll get around here. Some interesting ones to come as well in the schedule, by the way, with Rudskog and Motor Centre there as well. Relatively new circuit on the calendar and might suit these cars pretty well. At Lime Rock and Alton Park and Summit Point, and those lot will certainly suit these cars well as we get towards the end of another iRacing season. They seem to come around and pass us by very, very quickly indeed. These are the current standings. Now, I know this is hard to keep track of while we're on these broadcasts. We get just as confused. But Danny Martin is currently on the top of the standings by only 17 points ahead of Ade Coba Lopez. And then there is a bit of a bigger gap to Xavier Lopez, Dinas Ruiz Nunez, and so on. They're even tied for third place, by the way. But it is hard for us to keep track of it, to be honest, Will. But this does give us an idea of if we see any of these guys up there, we know they will be contending for the win tonight.
100%. This gives us kind of an idea of who's going to be fast, like you say. And when it comes to one of these events, because there's so many splits that go on every week, every single hour of every single day for a week, it's something like, I don't know what the numbers would be, but it's in the hundreds of sessions that we end up getting every week. And I think that this will give you an idea of who's done well across the season. We have seen some of these names throughout many of our broadcast races, but not always we see them. And I don't think we've got many here tonight, if any, but we do have some favourites, some people that we've seen here often. Dylan Freckleton returns tonight as you look at an overview of the circuit, and I think that we may see some standout performances by people that haven't raced in this series under our prime time yet, like Jack M. Wilson, who's just gone to the top of times in qualifying, and other people like that.
We do have fifth place in the standings. Victor Martinez Bergeros signed up, so that's all good news. And he's currently slotted into third place in this qualifying session right now. But you're right, not many of those top 10 in points have actually joined us here this evening. And that's what makes it a little bit difficult for us to keep track of because, as you say, there's nearly 200 sessions a week where you can score your points. And we obviously can't be watching all of them. So we've got no idea, to be quite honest. Burgos just moves up to second place, so we're just over 2 minutes remaining. It's not a long qualifying session, and it's setting ourselves up here for not a very long race either. Only 15 minutes would seem almost too short in any other form of racing, I feel. But in these cars, it suits them quite well, really. Only 15 minutes is a nice distance in terms of just not giving these guys too many laps out there. It really keeps the sprint racing feel, which you really need in this car.
100%, you. And I think that when we talk about sprint racing, something you think about is MX-5s, Clios, these kind of short cars, which have the opportunity to go and race really close, get a lot of passes in, a lot of opportunities to make moves and have exciting racing. And, we've seen the Clios throughout many countries in the world in real life. And now they've been inducted onto iRacing, you can see how fun and popular they can be to race.
Yeah, unfortunately not really on the UK circuits anymore these days, but those days are past, I believe. Yeah, that's a shame for us, but still very popular, as Miguel Castro contends with. One of the difficulties of Laguna Seca is the fact that there's not really much runoff around this circuit. It's all sand lining this track, and that is going to be a challenge for everybody. I mean, everyone talks about the corkscrew here at Laguna Seca, Will, but it's there's so much more to it than that. You can't just put all your focus into the iconic corners. You've got to focus on all of them because none of them have any room for error.
Yeah, the corkscrew is such a famous corner as we watch Miguel Castro come up to it. It's an iconic piece of this track, but it definitely doesn't solve the puzzle. You know, there's a lot of corners here, like you say, with minimal runoff. You're going to be using the curbs on the exits to the maximum you can because they just open the corner up a little bit more around here. So often the curb is what you're using for entry and exit. As we watch Castro come down to the finish of his lap, demonstrating how those curbs can be used to extend the track. And I always find the curbs quite tricky here. You have big red little curbs on the placements of the apexes, and if you hit some of those wrong, it can cause disaster for you out there.
Yeah, they are a bit annoying on occasion. I think we saw that a little bit from Castro actually on his way out of turn 3 when we saw him on that qualifying lap there. Wasn't quite able to get over the line in time, I don't even think, there. He'll remain 6th place for the race coming up right now. But the gridding has just begun. Let's take you through your 20-car grid, setting up for a 15-minute race here at Laguna Seca tonight in the Clio Cup. There you can see Miguel Castro just lining up into 6th place. Jack Wilson with the pole position on the front. He's just got himself ready, and he will be alongside the man who's 5th place in the point standings at the moment, Victor Martinez Burgos. There they are, separated by 3 temps in qualifying. Mike Hart and Alex Val on the second row, about half a second back. Then you've got George Matswinski and Miguel Castro, we were just talking about, on row 3. Pedro Saraiva will be in the 7th place ahead of Dan Blake. Johanna Simeons will be in 9th ahead of Demis Tiglar. Then it will be Dylan Freckleton and Ricardo Olmedo. Michele Berganati will be in the 13th place with Mark Osborne. Lucas Boschian is in 15th ahead of Antoine Blancas. Then it's Lorenzo Blanco and Respesi Steve. Has he got his names the wrong way around? Don't know. That's odd. Antonio Amasqueza and Francisco Velasco will be on the back row together. Up towards, underway immediately. The lights go on and they go out immediately as well. Up towards and over the brow of the hill for Jack Wilson as he converts a pole position to the front immediately, getting this car off the line nicely indeed. Burgos just in behind will have to single file through turns 1 and 2, and they will sort themselves out, although not in the background, I'm afraid. Lorenzo Blanco and Lucas Boschian, along with Antonio Amasqueta, have all got involved with one another down in towards turn 1. It's not unexpected, to be honest. Very tight and difficult run down the hill there as well, but the leaders at least have got away cleanly.
Yeah, the front of the pack has all not changed position. The front 9 cars not even making any moves so far in our lap. As you saw down into turn 1, it feels like the pace advantage we saw from Wilson in qualifying could be very crucial to him getting away in this race. And I feel like the attacks are going to need to be made soon, or he might have a risk of running away here.
Let's see, they run up towards the hill for the first time, towards the corkscrew. The world-famous corkscrew. It's Wilson, Burgos, Hart and Val, the top 4. They're staying very close together with George Matswinski not quite with them right now. Miguel Castro stuck there as well in that 6th place. There you can see that little gap from 4th back to 5th place. In a short race like this, you do need to be careful of a gap like that because you know, they haven't got much time to gain back this kind of gap, as down the inside goes Alex Val into the final corner. They can't afford to wait around, and he goes immediately down the inside of Mike Hart into the final turn. Doesn't quite come off for him, though, on that occasion.
Yeah, and as you look towards the background, I actually saw a move by Blancas as well. He's up 7 positions on this opening lap. One of the drivers we saw not set a qualifying time, and he's getting through the order very fast. We see a little bit of squabbling down into turn 1 for those preliminary positions. There's been a bit of a shove there. I'm not sure who's round. Looks to be Matswinski, who's got back onto the circuit relatively well, but may lose a couple more positions still.
Yeah, let's see. That looks maybe Castro, who, well, I suppose it's got to have been Castro who served him off the road there, down at turns 1 and 2. That was not ideal. It's very close between Saraiva and Simeons right now as well. Through turn 4, they'll run down towards 5, and there's surely going to be a look here from the driver of the 12. There won't be, in fact, for this very distinctively and somewhat bizarrely coloured blue and orange machine. But there we are, up towards the very quick turn 6, which I actually find one of the most difficult corners on this circuit, if not the most difficult. because of how committed you have to be through there, but could just be me, to be fair. Up the hill towards the corkscrew, and they'll stay single file here. You do have to wait a little bit, really. You have to wait for the final corner when you get to here to really have a chance at making your move. It's quite hard to go double file through these medium speed corners.
Yeah, the nature of these cars makes it very easy for them to follow, but without a serious mistake through the corkscrew, which does happen, to be honest, it's hard to kind of set up a move through those corners. Like you say, medium speed, you're really waiting for your big braking zones like we see here in the final corner. And unlike you, I do think blue and orange is quite a cool colour combo.
I wasn't saying it was uncool, but it's just distinctive. I quite like it as well, to be honest. Speaking of distinctive, Alex Val has gone with that in mind as well, by the looks of things, in 4th place right now, trying to get Mike Hart, but he's gone a little bit deep in towards turn 1. He's done the classic front-wheel drive sliding save, and he's in 5th place at least, but Miguel Castro will gain a very easy place. Saraiva also loses time. Pedro Saraiva on the outside line of turn 1 and 2 will be on the inside now of Antoine Blancas, who's made a good start here, and that's Saraiva down to 9th place. And, I'm not sure if that was the car you were speaking about before we came onto air here, Will, about the livery there, but that's a Mario livery by the looks of things to me. Pretty cool.
Well, actually, I think we have a little pair of plumber brothers, because we've got Mario, who's all the way up in 8th place, and in 14th, I believe we have Luigi. So clearly Mario is proving to himself that he is better than Luigi. As we look a little bit back, I'm not sure. I think I'm wrong, actually. That isn't the Luigi livery, so I'll have to go searching to find where it was.
Dear. Osborne, he's nearly kept out of the wall, but he did graze it on the way through, I'm afraid. He'll get back going again. Maybe that is the livery you saw and you just got it wrong earlier on.
No, I am right. Luigi does exist, however, is in 19th place, which is very saddening to me.
Okay, well, it's, fitting the roles, I suppose, early on. Lorenzo Blanco it is, down at the back. And we did have a 20th driver on the grid, by the way, earlier on, but clearly didn't take to the grid for this one, unfortunately, unless I counted wrong. It's entirely possible, to be quite honest with you. Over the line with just under 10 minutes remaining. Alex Val looking to recover from that big slide he had in towards turn 1 last lap around. He's no less committed this time, although he manages to pull it up in time, and he's continuing in his defence. It is sometimes bizarre in these races how you can go from feeling very strong to having one moment of uneasiness, and all of a sudden you find yourself looking over your shoulder quite a lot, and that's what Val is doing right now. And everyone getting dust kicked up into their face through turn 3 there. But Matswinski certainly putting on the pressure here, piling on the pressure indeed.
Yeah, Matswinski's kind of trying to make a move. If you sit your car there in the mirrors, kind of try and intimidate your opposition. I mean, we've already seen Val make a mistake. Certainly won't be wanting to do that again. And if you can apply that pressure, it maybe gives you the opportunity to pressurise them into maybe making those mistakes. We see Val go extremely wide there. Pretty much perfect, just about, but a few millimetres more, and that could have been disaster for Val. But Matswinski is kind of putting the pressure on. Don't know who has the pace advantage at the moment. You'd certainly say that Val, with his qualifying position being a little bit better, time not really too much, only half a tenth of a second between the both of them, you would expect him to be able to make the move.
Side by side, down in towards the penultimate corner, and Saraiva recovering from a couple of problems earlier on in the race to get back up into 8th place ahead of Yannis Simons there. And big dive from Dylan Freckleton into the final turn. That could all get very close, as Tichelaar also has to run right round the outside. And then on the straight, it'll be Dan Blake on the outside. They'll go side by side over the line. Blake will just about beat him to the line by the looks of things. And they'll go side by side right down the hill and towards turn 1 as well. Late on the brakes from both of them, in fact. Freckleton fights him off, though. Dan Blake forced out very wide, and Freckleton will hold on to 11th as Alex Val continues his defence of 5th place.
Yeah, and we see Val again, kind of, it looks like the first section of the lap, Matswinski is kind of a bit stronger, I'd say. It definitely looks to be that way. You know, we saw the gap open up towards the end of the lap. It's close back in again. Definitely see Matovitsky maybe making a diving move, but for the minute seems to be sitting back. That battle we saw just then with Freckleton was really interesting. You know, we saw that dive to the inside, but the compromise in exit speed cost him that vulnerability towards Blake. But they both dealt with it really well, and the braking performance of those cars was shown off excellently as they both run wide. You say about how hard that corner is, and I find that it's always a bit of a deceptive one. You kind of need to get into the camber of the apex to be able to get the car to grip and perform and take as much speed as possible. And as you can see, it's on the edge for a lot of our drivers here today.
Yeah, it is very much like that. If you miss the apex by
and skill rating with inside games.
Yeah, okay. I didn't.
Could relate to Ego. Definitely could relate to Ego.
Possibly. We don't want to make any judgments on Castro himself, of course. I don't want to make any judgments on him, of course, but yes, you never know. Dan Blake off the road as we go up towards turn 4. Not sure how he's found himself in that position. Down to 16th though, and he's back on the road at least, but way down the order, I'm afraid, in the final minute of this one. Apologies for the sound issues in the last couple of moments, by the way. We can tell you that Jack Wilson's still leading this one. The battle we've been watching, though, has been between Mike Hart and Miguel Castro. Castro getting very, very close to making the move. The corkscrew around 1 lap ago. There'll be 1 more lap after this one, so final lap coming up, and you can be sure that Castro's going to throw everything at this, because, as he said, everybody likes to finish on the podium.
Of course, Ewan, and we've got 1 lap to go here. 1 tour of this 1 minute 36 laps for these drivers. I would come up with the kilometres, but I imagine... Oh, it's 3.6. There you go. Come to my head. 3.6 kilometre circuit. Castro's going to try again to go to the outside, force Hart onto a slightly defensive line to compromise his run. But to be honest, that run through turn 1 wasn't very good, and it's going to be a harder graph now for Castro to catch back up and be able to make a move by the end of the lap.
It will be now. There's quite a few car nets between them, and he'll be running out of chances. I mean, I don't know if you'd agree, but I'd say the best opportunity by far, maybe not so much in this race, but generally at Laguna Seca, is turn 1. And since that is behind us for the last time, he's going to find this especially difficult, not least with the gap that there is right now between them.
I'd say turn 1 is definitely one of the best opportunities. You've got a long run on the straight. I know there's a little curve in between there, but pretty much no car in the world lifts on that curve. Castro certainly has the pace as we watch him dip a wheel. That was very, very close to disaster there, but he's still close. He may have a chance to dive bomb into this final corner. Definitely the slowest corner on the track, the corner which requires the most amount of braking, and potentially the final opportunity for Castro to get on the podium.
Well, he's on full send racing, and you know what that means. We know what that means for what we're going to see into the final corner here. Well, let's wait and see. Through the penultimate turn they'll go as Jack Wilson comes out the final corner. He will win on RaceSpot Friday night prime time here in the iRacing Clio Cup at Laguna Seca. Behind, though, it's the battle for third. Burgos gets into second. It's Mike Hart who will hang on to the bottom step of the podium. Miguel Castro throws everything at it in the end, but he wasn't quite close enough for that big dive at turn number 1. And I think he'll be wishing that this race was maybe 20 minutes long rather than 15, because if it was, he might have been able to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good race as we see the remainder of our top 10 cross the line. I think we saw some good battles kind of spewing, but I mean, hats have to go off to Wilson, because Wilson was absolutely dominant in that race and showed why he was the class of the field.
Absolutely. Not touched by anybody during that one, really. It was comfortably quicker. Probably set the, one of, if not the fastest lap of anyone on every single individual lap. And was not really challenged in that one as Antonio Amscuza goes over the line there. Not sure if he's run out of fuel. Maybe underfueling, I don't know. But just trickles over the line there. And makes it in 17th, just behind him, Francisco Velasco, who will come in just over a minute down. And unfortunately, Alex Val, who never got to the end of that race, even after running well early on. It was Jack Wilson who took the win, though, by nearly 4 seconds. Victor Martinez Burgos just behind. 5th place in points, by the way, in the iRacing standings right now. You have to come back next week to see where he ends up after this week. Mike Hart and Miguel Castro battled to the end there ahead of George Matczynski. Then it was Antoine Blancas in the 6th position ahead of Demis Tigelaar. Then it is Johannes Simons in the 8th place ahead of Dylan Freckleton and Pedro Sareva in the top 10. 11th place for Lorenzo Blanco ahead of Ricardo Almeida. 13th went to Michele Berganti in 13th ahead of Mark Osborne. Lucas Boschian running at the top 15 with Dan Blake dropping down to 16th. Antonio Amscuza gets up to 17th ahead of Francisco Velasco. Alex Val a few laps down, and Respecki Steve not making it to the start-finish line for whatever reason, never gridded up for that race, unfortunately. So that is it for 10 laps around here at Laguna Seca, and decent racing in the end, but there was no challenge for the race win. We did get that fight for third place that kept us entertained right to the very end, which was good to see in the end. There isn't an awful lot you have to do to defend. It is very much more on the overtaking car to try and fight your way through, and that can be difficult, as we've just seen.
Yeah, and I think we saw a great race. My main entertainment factor was Mario and Luigi, I have to say. And I hope to see them back next week. Of course, next week we return to the Red Bull Ring. Congratulations to Jack and Wilson, the winner today. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm gutted that I'm going to have to miss it.
Yeah, Red Bull Ring is going to be very, very exciting indeed. With the long straights and the slipstream opportunities around there, it's set to be a very, very close one indeed. 7 p.m. UTC/GMT, as you can see there, this time next week. Make sure you join us here on RaceSpotTV, and plenty more racing coming up this weekend as well. So make sure you stick around for that over the next few days. For now, though, that's going to be it from us here on RaceSpot Friday Night Prime Time, until we see you once again in another week's time for the next round at the Red Bull Ring. It's goodbye for now.